Good morning and welcome to the Mini Storage Messenger Self-Storage webinar series. I'm Poppy Behrens, publisher of Minico Incorporated, and we're delighted to have you in the audience today. This is one of several informative webinars planned for self-storage owners, operators, managers, investors, developers, and other industry professionals. The sponsor of today's webinar is San Antonio, Texas-based Joshua Management, a Param Group company that was created through a 20-year quest to provide comprehensive customer service to the self-storage industry, offering site management, employee training, financial reports, accounting, audits, brokerage, and marketing. Our presenter today is Ann Param, President and CEO of Joshua Management. This year marks the 30th anniversary of the Mini Storage Messenger, the original voice of the self-storage industry. Each issue of Messenger provides readers with in-depth news and information, with cover stories and feature articles that explore the most timely industry topics and trends. In addition, monthly columns contributed by industry experts and accomplished business professionals address a wide range of topics including security, facility operations, technology, legal issues, legislative updates, construction, and development. We also publish a variety of other self-storage data sources such as those that you see listed on your screen. For more information, please visit ministoragemessenger.com. Today's webinar is being recorded and will be available for viewing on demand from our archives at ministoragemessenger.com. We invite you to submit questions throughout today's webinar. To ask a question, simply type it into the question area and click Send. While we will try to answer as many questions as we can during the Q&A period at the end of the webinar, those that cannot be answered due to time constraints will be answered by way of email after the webinar. Today's presentation should run about 45 minutes, with the remainder of the hour open to questions and answers. And now it is my distinct pleasure to turn the presentation over to Ann Param. Good morning, Ann.
Good morning, and it's afternoon where I am, and maybe afternoon where some of the rest of you are. I'd like to welcome you to today's webinar, which is called Economic Survival for Managers. And I really hope that I have a lot of managers in the audience today. I know I have some of our old regular attendees, which is great, but I hope that we do have a good mix today and we have some managers that will be able to benefit from this. Over the last year or so, with talking with different managers, with my own management staff, and also going to different trade shows and talking with managers, I'm beginning to get a feeling of some anxiety from our managers out there in the field as to what today's economic climate is doing to them or is going to do to them. So I thought that this would be a good idea to address some of what they're concerned for, and also to try to get them more involved into the overall process of self-storage. One of the things that I've noticed over the years is that we tend to, as owners and developers, put a lot of emphasis on our managers to just get out there and lease and take care of those customers. And they really don't have a very good idea of what the owner's perspective is and where the owner is coming from. So that's the kind of things that I'd like to talk about today, as well as some other ideas on what they can do in the store and different aspects like that. But first, let's go back to the 80s, and I'm sure there's a lot of you out there that remember the 80s. And there were some pretty tough economic times going on then, too. Back then, I think there was only about, very, very small percentage, less than 1%, of all self-storages went back to the financial institutions, which means less than 1% of all self-storages in the United States failed. So what is different today that we're seeing? What makes that kind of economic downturn that we went through then different from what we're going through today? Today, I think that the main thing that causes us to have a little bit more concern is that we have much more competition. Over the last few years, there's been a lot more self-storages being built, a lot of new people coming into the development market, and they found out that this is really a pretty good deal when it works. So we've had a lot of new players come in, a lot of new stores being built, much more competition. Unfortunately, we've also had a lot of stores that probably were not built in the exact place they should have been built, and those are the ones that might be struggling a little bit right now. that's the main difference that I think we are having to address now. That doesn't mean that all self-storage is not going to work, because there are self-storages that are doing well in this economic market, and there are some, and I have a wide range of them. I have one that absolutely performs no matter what, and then I have some that are a little bit stagnant that we're having to work on a little harder, and then some that are doing okay. But what I'd like to do today is have a conversation with the managers and talk to them. First, let's talk about what the owner sees and what they are looking at when they look at the self-storage, because what they're looking at is they're looking at as a business. And when they were thinking about doing a self-storage and putting all of the criteria together to do that, they were looking for someone to do one specific primary job for them in that store. And what I'd like for you to do right now is just go ahead and think for a minute, and then we'll get back to this later. What exactly is your primary job? And once you kind of get your thoughts around that, we'll come back to it and discuss what I think your primary job is. First, let's talk about how much do you as a manager know about self-storage. And depending upon what kind of store you are in operating, will depend on what the breadth of your responsibilities are. Majority of you know about operating a store. You're pretty savvy on customer service. You know how you need to take care of your customer. Absolutely every one of you knows how to lease a unit, I hope. You all are probably all pretty good at chasing delinquent accounts. You probably have a schedule for going out and marketing to the businesses in your area or apartment complexes, realtors, doctor's offices, lawyers, places like that. And then you probably know something about accounting. There may be some of you who have the full responsibility to pay all the bills in the stores. I know that some of you never do. My managers don't. We do all of our accounting here centralized in our corporate office. But there are some managers out there for some single owners that are doing the accounting. So they may have a little bit more knowledge about what we're going to talk about today than some other managers. But how many of you know what the exact development procedure was for your storage or any storage? And this is where we're going to start today, is that I want to get you to understand from the owner's point of view what he is looking at when he looks at that self-storage that you are operating for him. And we're going to look at things from his point of view. So let's go through a model of a storage development using the following parameters. We're going to call our storage XYZ storage. It's a Class A facility. It's a beautiful facility. It has, asphalt drives. It has keyed access. It has lots of cameras. It has state-of-the-art security system. It has a good mix of climate control and has lots of retail to offer. It's just a very nice property. And the owner, when the owner decided that he wanted to get into the self-storage business, some of the things that he had to consider, the first thing, of course, was what is this going to cost me? So the parameters for this self-storage is that he went out and he bought 3.84 acres for $1.5 million. He took out a construction loan for about $4,409,000, which gave his total development cost of about $5,800,000. And now, please understand, especially those of you who are in development that are looking at this and saying, oh, she's leaving out a lot of stuff. I'm trying to give kind of an overview so that managers can understand the basics of developing a property. So there's going to be a lot of things that you're going to think I'm leaving out, but what I'm trying to do is just give some basic information. So we have a gross square footage of 88,940, and our net rentable square footage is 62,100. And I am hoping that everybody understands the difference between your gross square footage and your net rental, that you're going to lose a lot in your climate control in your hallways and things like that. And the total number of units that we have is 556. So it's a decent-sized property. Now, when this owner decided to build the self-storage and went out and took a loan out for all this money, he needs somebody that was going to run this for him and know what their primary job for him was. So the primary job that you have as a manager for your owner, and it's just one basic thing, and that is to make the owner money. He's not going to go and take the risk of building the self-storage and signing on any note if he's not going to make money. This is a business to him. So even though that you may think your primary job is to lease units, yes, that's one of your jobs, because that leasing units is going to make the owner money. So with that in mind, that gives you a little bit of an idea why he's calling you every week asking you, how come we haven't leased more? So back to what the owner's perspective is. When he was trying to decide to put together the self-storage, he had to put together what's called a pro forma. And a dictionary definition of a pro forma is it's a document provided in advance in order to supply descriptions of something or to serve as a model. Okay? So this basically is a business model. And this is what he took to the bank. And this is kind of an overview. And you know, he did his homework. He went around and he looked at what his competition was in his market, and he got all of the rents, and he decided, you know, if I build this size facility for this amount of money and I can charge this kind of rents, this is what I can make. So for our XYZ self-storage, our gross potential income on an annual basis is going to be over $1 million. Now we're going to knock off 10%. And we're going to operate this pro forma at a 90% occupancy. So, because you know, hopefully we're never 100%, right? Because if we're 100% occupied, we're out of business. So we're going to take off that vacancy of $100,000, and it leaves us with an effective gross income of about $908,000. Now we have to spend money to operate. We have to have certain things that we pay for, including the manager's salary. So the operating expenses will be taken out, and that's $233,000, which leaves us with a net operating income, and you're going to hear this term, NOI, and you'll probably hear a lot from your owner, of $674,680. Now, that's kind of the bottom, that's what people talk about all the time is the NOI. Now, off of that net operating income, we have to pay the bank, because majority of the time, our owners are not going to build out of cash. Okay, so he's going to pay every year a total of $497,175 back to the bank for his what we call debt service or loan payment, which leaves him a total amount of cash flow of $177,505. Now, when you look at that, you think, well, that really doesn't sound like a lot of money to be making off of that kind of debt. And it doesn't at first, because this is what we call a flat pro forma analysis. This does not take in consideration that we're going to raise any rents, you know, or how much retail we're going to sell, or if we're going to rent any trucks or anything like that. This is strictly if we rented all of our units at street rate and took that 10% off for vacancy. So then what he's going to do is he's going to project out for 5 years what that pro forma and what's going to happen over the next 5 years, and this is also what he's going to show to the bank. Once again, we're going to have our total gross income, and the first year we're going to say it's $961,048. Now, we're not going to build in a rent increase for that first year. So our effective gross income is going to be $156.77, because we're going to project on a 2.5% per month occupancy rate. That's all we're going to say we're going to do. So at the end of the first year, if you can see the occupancy rate right here, it's going to be 16.30. That's pretty conservative, really. We're going to take away our operating expenses, which is going to give us a negative net operating income, a negative NOI of $64,398. And our debt service is going to have to come out of pocket, and it'll be at $215,000. So that first year that we are operating, we're going to be in the hole, cash flow-wise, of $280,114. So you can see why he comes in there every week and says, how many did you lease? Because that first year or two, basically, he's going to operate in the negative. Now, if you'll jump over here to year 3, you can see at the very bottom, we're just now getting to where we're making money, okay? And this property is at a 60% occupancy rate before we're into that position. Now, I know that there's a lot of you out there thinking, well, I'm making $30,000, $35,000. I'm bringing in those kind of rents every month. That's not necessarily, going to pay everything. So, from the owner's perspective, he is really taking a risk for quite a few years before he starts to turn that profit. Now, on this particular property that I've used as a model, year 4 is going to be our refinance year, and we're hoping we're going to be at 90%. Now watch, we've increased our rents by 7.5% because we did that every year. And we're going to have a net operating income of over almost $700,000. And then you take away your debt service, and here's your projected cash flow that 4th year. And it's at this point that she's probably going to go over to permanent financing. So this is what our 5-year projection is. So it takes quite a while for a property to become what we call stabilized and start to become into a good cash flow that we're looking for. Now, this is going to be a little bit busy, so just kind of bear with me. And once again, when you look at these numbers, I don't want people thinking, oh my gosh, I can't believe they're paying that much for whatever landscaping or whatever it is on there. This is just a model. These are just kind of made up figures to kind of give you an idea. It is in the ballpark, but don't take this one to the bank, okay? Now, if you'll notice on our income and expenses, we have a leasing month right here. Get my highlighter to work. A leasing month, and then we have below it a development month. Now, the way the owner looks at this is that month 1 is the month that you open the property and you were able to lease some units, and we started having money coming in. The development month right here is that's how long it took from putting the property under contract to getting the property built until he could open the doors. So he's been basically working on this business for 8 months before we can even get the doors open and get some income coming in. So we're going to start with our total gross income. If everything was rented, full street rate would be $80,000. But we're going to project that we're going to do 2.5% that first month. Hopefully it's going to be a little bit more because we're going to have some pent-up demand, people driving up and down the street looking at it saying, I wonder when that storage is going to open. And then we have that big rush at the beginning of the first month. But let's just be conservative and say 2.5%. So our rental income is going to be $2,003. And that's all we're going to take in. Now, as you go down to operating expenses, you can see that there's a lot that goes on in operating a store other than just paying the manager and buying some office supplies. We have a lot of different things that we look at. Advertising and marketing, I've noticed that over the years I've had to spend more on advertising and marketing. We have money in there for auto and truck expenses, training and education. Insurance is a big expense, as you can see. Liability insurance is something you have to have in case something happens to the property. Depending where you are in the United States, it can be really, really high, and other places it can be very reasonable. We have a general administration fund. We have repairs and maintenance to the property, which hopefully that first year we're not going to have too many because everything's going to be under warranty. telephone and internet, because especially nowadays with all of our web-based softwares, we really need to have that internet. And then a little bit of money for travel and entertainment. Utilities and security services. If you have any climate control, you're going to have a good-sized utility bill. And as we go down, also notice that we have taxes. And this is something that I recommend to every owner, is that they're going to accrue taxes on a monthly basis, so that they don't get hit with that at the end of the year. And then we also take in consideration our employee salaries, employee insurance, any other kind of benefits, uniforms we have. And then after my total operating expenses, then I've got my management fee. Now, if you don't have a management company, then you're not going to have that fee. So that was going to leave me with a net operating income of a negative $16,000. My debt service interest is going to be $17,000 that I need to pay the bank. How much money do I have available for my debt? I don't. I'm in the red, aren't I? I only have I have a negative $16,000. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw out of my development loan a total of $33,738 in order to pay my bills for that first month. Now, what I'd like for you to do, now that we know what our expenses are, is let's just go through and look at this where it says draw requested. Excuse me. I'm going to get a drink of water. Hang on. And right below that draw requested, we're going to also look at net income. And if you'll notice, that net income is zero for quite a while, because up here we're in month 13 on the second page, and we still have a net income of zero. We're having to draw money, and it will go down as each month goes because we're going to collect more rents. But we're going to have money that has to come out of the loan, and this is what you'll hear your owner refer to as lease carry. And that's what is built into the loan that they draw out every month to pay for the operation of the property until the property is in a break-even status, until the property can pay for itself. So look where we get. All the way over, we're at month 19, and that's the first month that we don't draw any money out of our lease carry. That's the first month that we are in a net income position. We've made $1,000, and we're in month 19. So it takes a while for your property to get there. Now, let's say that you don't lease at 2.5% a month. Let's say that you hit some winter months and you're less than 1%. You're not going to be on target. And understand, too, please, managers, that this is what the owner took to the bank and said, this is my model, this is what I'm projecting, this is what I think the business will do. Now, the bank is monitoring you also, and they're looking at occupancy reports, and they're looking at, that NOI and all of these financial reports from the owner to see how well this property is doing. So as you get close to that point where the property is starting to hopefully break even and start to profit, understand that not only is the owner getting nervous if you're not getting there, but the bank is getting nervous too. And we all know the climate with banks right now, don't we? So as a manager, what I would like for you to do is sit down and talk to your owner. And if there's some owners out there, I encourage you to sit down with your managers. And please understand, managers, that this is pretty much proprietary information when your owner sits down and divulges this kind of financial information to you. So when I come shop you, please don't start coughing up, oh yeah, there's a $6 million loan on this property. Understand that the owner will be trusting you with what we call proprietary information. And maybe he doesn't need to tell you the whole picture, but he does probably need to tell you a little bit of information so you can understand the financial status of your property, because that's going to be easier for you to reach your goals if you understand where you are. So as a manager, ask yourself, do you know what are your operating expenses? What does it cost for you to operate that store every month? And you can go back or you can sit down and talk with your owner about what is it that is costing the store. What are we paying for landscaping? What's our insurance cost? Different things like that. Once you kind of know that, ask him, what are your lease goals? And if you're working for someone that doesn't have established lease goals, sit down and work out a lease goal plan with him or with her. Ask what your property's debt service is. How much does he have to pay back to the bank every month? This is going to give you an idea of what kind of cash you need to be bringing in every month in order to pay not only for your operating expenses, but also for your property's debt service. And if you're a manager of a new store, ask your owner, what's my break-even occupancy? When does this store start paying for itself? Now that we understand what the owner is looking at when they're looking at the property, and that they're looking at it from a business standpoint, let's talk a little bit about how we're going to get the customer's attention and what the customer is going to look at. Because that's our biggest issue right now, is that we've got to get in some good traffic. My managers always tell me, if we can get them in the door, I can lease to them. And that's the kind of attitude you need to have. So the very first thing that you need to do as a manager is go drive up and down your street and look at your property, and look at it with a very, very critical eye. If you have a friend that doesn't see your property very often, make them go with you and have a good look at the property. Does it need to be painted? Is the landscaping in good shape? Does the grass look good? Is your sign faded? Is there a tree in front of your sign where you can't see the sign? A lot of times we get to where we see things every day and we kind of have blinders on. So we need to look at it with a fresh set of eyes to see what is that customer looking at as they drive by your property. Now, how many of y'all realize that the majority of your customers are going to come from drive-by, and that hopefully you're in a really good location to where you have a lot of street traffic going up and down your street, but they have to be able to look over there and think to themselves, that looks like a nice place, and I would like to have my stuff there, because that's going to be their first impression, is what that property looks like from the street level. The next thing that I encourage you to do, especially in this time, this little economic time we're in, is to become involved in your community. Now, some of you who are in larger cities, you have a community around you, and it's called your market, and that's where you're drawing your customers from. And within that market, there are schools, there are churches, there are community organizations, there's Little League teams, there's volleyball teams, there's different things like that you can become involved in. And what you're trying to do is you're trying to get your name out there so that you become visible to the community, so that when people do need storage, they'll think of you. So go out there and sponsor that Little League team. Or if the library has a book drive, go over there and tell them you'll give them a 10 by 15 unit to help store their stuff in. And be sure and put it up on your marquee. Or be sure that your name gets mentioned in any kind of advertising that they do, or fundraising drive, or whatever. But become involved in your community. Don't just sit there in your store and not know what's going on within that community or that market that you are in. The next thing that we want to do is we want to be sure that we are affordable. And I'm sure that every manager that's out there is taking what we call rent comps or rent comparisons every month to be sure that you're within a competitive area within your prices. Now, we can't price fix. So understand that you can't call your buddy down there at the storage, a mile away and say, I'm going to charge $100 for a 10 by 10. How about you? We can't do that. But we can get an idea of what the prices are within your market, and we can be competitive within that market with our prices. The next thing that we can do is we can run specials. Now, I get into this discussion a lot with different managers, about why can't I just lower my prices. And let's go back to that pro forma and look at it from the owner's point of view. When the owner went to the bank, the owner had already done his rent comps, and he had already established these are the prices that I'm going to charge, and this is the money that I'm expecting to get on these rents. Now, once you start to lower those rents, you run the risk of you are devaluing your property. So you don't want to go and just slash all of your rents across the board. The easiest thing to do is to offer specials. And this first month free, that's a real common special right now, along with a $1 move-in. But see, then it's a temporary hit. It's not a hit all the way across the board. And the idea is that we get filled up on certain sizes and then we raise our rents a little bit. We don't necessarily want to get into this business of lowering rents. So the way we deal with that is that we become competitive with our specials. You should have a lot of different specials available to you as a manager so that you can, make a deal with a customer that walks in the door. Now, I do tell my managers, I said the first thing you do is you tell them full price, because sometimes you'll have customers that come in and they have no problem with paying that full price, and that's great. But you want to have available to you specials, and you as a manager should be able to read that customer standing across the counter from you on where they are, and if they're going to really have the need to get that first month free, or that they are military and need a military discount, or they're going to lease for 6 months and they'd like a discount. So you need to have within your arsenal a lot of different specials that you can use to lease a unit. So when we're talking about leasing and we're looking at the tools that we have available for leasing, think for a minute about what is the most important and most valuable asset you have for leasing a unit. And the owner should be able to think about this too, because how many times have we seen a wonderful, beautiful facility with all the bells and whistles and all the amenities and state-of-the-art, and it's in a great place, and it just doesn't lease? So what is it that you think that the problem is with that? Well, mainly the most valuable asset for leasing a unit with any facility is going to be you. Because it doesn't matter how great the facility is or how beautiful the facility it is, if we don't have the right person behind the desk that is looking at that customer as the most valuable person in the room, then we're not going to lease the unit, and the owner's not going to be successful. So as managers, what I'd love for you to do is to just sit back for a minute and ask yourself, do you provide the ultimate in customer service? And like I said, when that customer walks through your door, do you look at them as the most important person in that room at that very given moment? I have a manager that walks around the outside of the desk and puts his hand out and says, "Hi, my name is John. What can I do for you today?" and looks the person straight in the eye. The problem that we get into in self-storage is that we have moments of complete chaos followed by long periods of boredom. And so we just, sitting behind your desk and looking up and say, "Yeah, what can I do for you?" when that person walks into that door, that's not going to do it for them. Because remember that there's a lot of other people running storage units that are going to give that ultimate customer service to that customer when they walk in that door. We're all leasing air. And the one thing that's going to make that difference is, what does that customer feel like when he walks into your facility? Does he feel like this is going to be a good place for him to keep his stuff, that you care about whether or not his property is well taken care of? Does he get a safe feeling about your property? And does he have a connection with you, that you care about him and about what he's going through? So what I always ask my managers is that, is this your mission or your ministry, or is this just a paycheck? Because if this is just a paycheck and you're just here writing leases and you're just here leasing units and getting the units filled up, trust me, it's not going to work out. And you're going to be miserable, and you're not going to make the owner happy. because customers will pick up on that. So what you have to do is you have to look at this as, I'm here to help this person walk in the door. Yes, my primary job is to make that owner money. But the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to show that person that walks in the door that I have a very vested interest in them. You know, I tell people all the time, because I have a lot of friends that don't own storage, and they really, people that don't own storage find this to be a very different kind of, of industry. And they always want to know, well, so what are people leasing for? And I always tell them that the majority of our customers that walk in the door are in transition, and they're looking for help. They're going through probably a hard time in their life. They've either gone through a divorce, or they've gone through a death in the family, or they have a kid that is leaving, or a kid that's coming home. But they're in some kind of transition period where they need some extra space in order to get through that. And how you treat them when they walk in the door is going to make the difference on whether or not they decide that this is where they want their stuff to be. Because we're a nation that likes our stuff, and we have a lot of sentimental attachments to things. I had a customer, a couple that came in and talked to one of my managers, and you know, he worked real hard to close that deal and showed them the property and spoke with them for, you know, a good 20 minutes and was interested in what was going on with them. And they left and said, well, you know, we just really feel like we need to go look at a couple more. We would be remiss in taking the first place that we stopped at. And he said, okay, you know, but he certainly wanted to have their business and would like for them to come back. And, you know, within 2 hours, they came back and they said, we just decided that we want to be with you, that, you know, we felt like you were the kind of person that we would want to do business with, and that we would like to have our stuff here with you. And that's what made the difference to them. And in this competitive market, that's the kind of thing that's going to make the difference. So as you sit back today and you think to yourself, okay, what's the most important thing I can do? Think about how you're going to greet that customer when they walk in the door, and how you're going to make them feel like this is a place that they need to leave their stuff. In closing, and I hope that everyone understands that we could have talked about marketing today, and we could have talked about some different things, but I've been in the business for quite a few years, and I'm going to be honest with you, I don't have a magic marketing tool. I've tried everything there is to try in marketing. I've had TV advertisements, I've had radio, I've done mail-outs. Some things work in some markets and some things don't. The main thing with marketing that you want to take in consideration is that what is the return on your investment? If I'm spending $5,000 on a mail-out, am I getting leases off of that mail-out? You know, and understand that can take a while, because what you're trying to do is get that your name of your store in that person's mind, that when they need storage, they will come in. But be sure that when you do that with your marketing, that you get the value of your dollar, of what's coming back to you in leases. But the most important thing to me is that once the person gets in the door is how they are treated, and if that manager can close that sale. So when you think about your job as manager and what your primary job is to make the owner money, and that's definitely going to make the owner happy. And with that, it's going to also make the bank happy. And then your next concern is making that customer happy. And then, hopefully, you'll be happy, because your owner will be able to hopefully reward you for the good work that you've done. I hope that this has given you all some insight as to not only what the owner looks at, but the customer looks at, and what you need to look at as a manager. And that we'll all be able to survive these kind of little rough economic times. I am going to encourage you and tell you it won't last forever. We all got through the 80s, those of us that were around, and we did survive that. And we will survive this little economic downturn too. Right now, I'll just give it back to Poppy and see if there's any questions that we may have.
Great. Thank you very much, Ann. A lot of great information. The first question is, please explain price fixing. Explain why we can't tell competitors that we are going to charge a certain amount for a unit.
You can tell competitors what you're going to charge. What you can't do is you can't meet all down at the coffee shop and say, well, we're all going to get together and we're going to decide that we're going to fix our prices at $100 for a 10 by 10, and so that everybody has the same price. That's called price fixing, and it's illegal. Okay, you can tell them, yeah, I'm charging $100 for 10 by 10, and they can say, oh, well, I'm charging $95. Now, you can go away from that, and you and your owner can decide, well, I think I'm going to, we're going to drop our rate to 98. But you can't get with a group of managers and price fix, is what I'm saying.
Okay, excellent. Next question. Do you use cost segregation as a part of your strategy with your clients? If so, can you tell me if it has benefited your clients?
Okay, and when you mean by cost segregation, I'm not real sure what it is you're asking me there. So, and clients meaning the customer that walks in the door.
Okay, perhaps the...
I'd have to get a little bit more, yeah, because I'm not real sure what they're trying to get at with that. Does that mean that I charge different prices for different units located in different places? I can answer to that. But if they could write back and give me a little bit more information on what they mean by that. I don't want to answer the wrong thing.
Okay, perfect. Let's move on to the next question, and we'll wait for a response to that. We are a small-town facility, and we are considering hiring a management company. What should we expect as a minimum management fee from you or others? Any management companies doing a limited service type arrangement that would have a lower, are there any management companies doing a limited service type arrangement that would have a lower monthly fee for someone like us?
Okay. I'm going to tell you that just about every management company out there is in a negotiating mode right now. So usually what they do is they start out at a flat rate. If you're a facility that does not, is like on a lease-up type situation, that rate might be $1,500 a month. And then after that, it's usually a percentage of your gross. So it'd be 6%, let's say, and whichever is more. So it starts out at $1,500, and then it becomes more as your facility leases up. And it's really an incentive for the management company to make you money, because they're going to get paid more if you lease up better. There are management companies, and like I said, I think all of them are kind of in a negotiating mode right now, that perhaps you'll do the accounting and they just do the managing part. That would probably be less money per month. You just need to sit down with whoever you're talking to and decide what it is you exactly need for your facility. It would be good if you could find a management company that has other facilities in the area, because then there's maybe some costs that can be shared. You also want to be sure that you understand exactly what kind of reporting is done, if they do take over accounting, if that includes any kind of a tax reporting at the end of the year, different things like that.
Okay, and back to the cost segregation question.
Okay.
I have some clarification on that. Cost segregation would probably be more suited to the owner. It is a tax-saving strategy in which the owner can take advantage of the time value of money by accelerating depreciation.
Okay, that's an accounting question, and that's what I would consider a development question. Yes, they can. That kind of deal to me is negotiated up front, and since I kind of tailored this to a manager kind of seminar, I don't know why the manager would really need to know that. So if you would like, I can pass that on to our development. My husband, Mike, has been in development for over 25 years, and he most certainly would have, a great answer for that.
We can have that one answered offline after the webinar then.
That'd
Next question. Next question is, how do you feel about giving a discount to a current tenant that says he knows the guy down the street is charging less and he is considering moving there? Apples to apples as far as the two sites go.
And we're talking apples to apples. You know, we're looking hard at retention of customers, because I'm going to tell you, I've got some properties where I'm, leasing 12 and having 15 move out. So retention is a big thing. People are looking at that $100 a month that they've been spending for the last 2 or 3 years, and as things start to tighten up, they look to see, where can I save some money? So the first thing I do is I would verify that the person down the street is charging less than you, and then offer them a deal. Make some kind of deal that for the next 3 months or the next 4 months, I'll give you that price. Because 9 times out of 10, what customers don't realize is that what people do is, or what owners and operators a lot of times do, is that they'll get them in at a low price, and then the next month or two they're going to raise their rent. So that's going to be something that you're going to have to sell. Now, it's going to be easier for that person not to move, isn't it? Because who wants to move all their stuff, especially right now? And if you can kind of cut a deal with them, once you verify that what they're saying is true, then you've got a retained customer. And that's kind of going to start being the name of the game at this point.
Okay, wonderful. Next question. Besides the typical box and lock sales, are there any ancillary income opportunities that you particularly like?
I've tried a lot of those too, and I'm going to tell you, it depends on the market. And that's the first thing that needs to be done, is that you really need to do a good market study when you start looking at other things to sell. Every time I go to the UPS store, I'm amazed at the number of people that are in there. The problem is that you've got to get into an area to do that type of ancillary thing where you don't have the UPS store down the street. So it's very market driven. We've tried to do some things like we've sold candles and cards and things like that, and it's kind of a convenience item. But it doesn't really sell that well, because when people come to storage, they're coming to store. So they're going to need the type of things that they need for storage. So like I said, I think it's very market-driven. You need to do a lot of market research. You need to see who your competition is for those other ancillary items. Trucks seem to work great in some places. I'm going to tell you that in Texas, it doesn't seem trucks work as well as they do in Florida, because everybody here in Texas has a truck. So, you get 2 or 3 buddies together and a case of beer, and you can go move yourself in a weekend. Whereas in other parts of the country, they don't have access to a lot of pickup trucks, so they need that truck to rent or to use free with move-in. And that's another incentive to get people in. So absolutely, I say to research everything and to look into everything, but it is very market-driven. And what will work one place doesn't necessarily work someplace else.
Okay. Next question is, do you feel generally that the storage industry has trained people to expect a discount?
Oh, I do now, absolutely. That's because we have a very large player that comes on prime time, morning, noon, and night, and tells you that they're going to give you a $1 move-in. And because of that advertising, now when people walk in the door, they want that $1 move-in, because they're hearing that. So I can, like I said, we try not to offer the discount right up front, because there is a certain percent of people that are just going to come in and get a unit, and that's it. But I think because of what's happening in the market and because of that kind of competitiveness, that most people are walking in looking for a deal. And that's what we've done to ourselves.
Okay. Next question is, I've heard different attorneys preach about staying away from free month rents or discounts due to legal issues. What is your perspective on this?
3-month rent or discounts on 3 months rent? Is that what their question is?
They're saying that they've heard the attorneys preach not to give free rent as a discount.
Not to give free rent?
Yeah.
Well, free rent is not really free rent, Okay, and the way that you can structure that is that they have to pay a month to get a month. Okay, so what you're doing is they're not moving in for nothing. Okay, they're not moving in for zero amount of dollars. They have to put some kind of money up in order to move in, but they're still getting a deal. And the way you sell that is that you show them, you know, if you move in today and pay the rest of this month, your next payment is not due till the end of the following month. And then they feel like they're getting that deal that they need, but they still have had to pay some money up front to come in. We don't ever let anybody move in for $0. I think I think that, yeah, there probably is some legal issues with that.
Okay, that's some good advice. What do you think the market is for manager compensation right now? Hourly pay, bonuses, vacation benefits, apartment size?
I think in the last 3 or 4 years it's gone up. I think that what I'm finding now is that it's getting pretty competitive. I'm finding a lot of good managers out there looking for jobs. We've had a lot of consolidation of facilities and a lot of different people going up and buying multiple facilities and bringing in their own people and things like that. But I think that, gone are the days where we used to hire, and I'm dating myself, that old retired couple that had an additional income with retirement, and the wife sat in the office and leased the unit, and the husband went out and swept and cleaned the units and did the maintenance. We're looking at a whole different level of professionalism in our self-storage managers, and we're demanding a little bit more, so I think we're having to pay them a little bit more. I like a bonus structure. I think that you need to get paid for, the amount of work that you produce, and I also like the idea of providing good benefits, because I think that you get to retain good people that way.
Okay, what is the rule of thumb for direct marketing, a 1 to 3 mile radius?
Depends on your demographics and where you are. But yeah, I would say up to 3 miles. If you haven't done a good supply and demand study, you probably ought to do one and find out exactly where your market is. Because sometimes your market isn't, sometimes it's a business market. It's not necessarily a complete 3-mile circle, that's about right, a circle, because sometimes you're cut off by major highways and things like that, and your market may, be an octagon. It may not necessarily be a 3-mile out radius. So, getting a good supply and demand study is probably a good thing to do. Now, can you do that yourself? Yeah, you can. It takes a little bit of effort, but you definitely can do one yourself. And then you can go to you can go to your Yellow Pages and things like that to find out where your businesses are and look at doing that kind of direct marketing to those people within that area that you're trying to target.
Okay, great. Next question. What is the most common mistake that managers make?
The most common mistakes that managers make is they're bored. They act bored. I don't know how many times I've gone into facilities, and believe it, managers don't think for a minute you're not shopped about once or twice a week, because you are. There's a lot of shopping going out there. So once you go in and walk in the door, you can tell right away if that manager is enthusiastic about his job or not. And I'm going to tell you that the majority of them aren't. They don't acknowledge you when they walk in, or they have this kind of board, oh, here you go, and it's this much money, and do you need a lock? And, because, like I said, self-storage seems to be, condensed moments of complete chaos, followed by long, languid periods of boredom, because depending on the time of month or how much traffic you're getting in or time of year, it's going to depend on how much activity is going on in that store with customers coming in. So boredom is the biggest thing, and then trying to keep yourself from acting bored. because, you know, how many times can you present a lease and make that exciting? You have to work at it.
Okay, here's the other end of that question. What is the most common mistake that owners make with their managers?
I think they take them for granted and they don't listen to them. Your managers know a lot. They know a lot about your customers. They know a lot about what works in the market. Sometimes they come up with things that if they were just explained to how, like I said, like, you know, teaching them how the development business plan works. Sometimes, you know, we'll give them more of an idea. Okay, well, that wouldn't be a good idea, but a lot of times your managers have really good ideas, and I'm sorry to say that you know, many times owners take that for granted.
Okay, one more. Are you comfortable giving the manager the pro forma or numbers? How much information do you actually give to your managers?
Well, and this is the thing. It's going to be an owner-by-owner basis. We give our managers, we started to give our managers quite a bit of information so that they can manage the store. You know, they know where they are in the pro forma level and where they are with the store as far as the business plan is concerned. Now, I also feel like I have pretty good quality managers. And I've also, you know, talked to them about this is proprietary information. It's not to be given out to anybody. You know, you may have people come in that are shopping that are going to start, you know, in conversation, well, how much do one of these things cost? You know, because a lot of developers are really good at that. And so they have to understand what their responsibility is with that information. That, you know, they're let in on that information because they're part of this team that's going to make that business successful. So that's how we try to present it.
Okay, wonderful. Well, we are out of time for today. We'd like to thank everyone for attending today's webinar, and we'd like to thank Anne for presenting such a great webinar with some wonderful information. You will be receiving an email no later than Monday with a link to the archived presentation along with a special offer, so make sure that you watch your inbox for this email. And last but certainly not least, if you'd like information about any of our upcoming webinars, please visit our website at ministoragemessenger.com. Again, thank you to everyone for attending, and have a wonderful rest of the day.